Burnt toast!
So this means second set. Nah, nah, nah. That was impressive, I think.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And that was our second set tonight. We're dedicating our show to the singer-songwriters of the 1960s and 70s. And of course, that was one of the greats. We're going to go from the top again.
Mm-hmm.
Because we just ended with Bob Dylan. So we're going to go from the top again. Joni Mitchell, we started off the set with Joni Mitchell from her album called Court and Spark from January of 1974 with the track Troubled Child. Joni Mitchell on the vocals and the acoustic guitar, Tom Scott on the woodwinds, Joe Sample from the Crusaders and the LA Express on the keyboards, John Guerin, great drummer, on the drums, Chuck Finley on the trumpet, Dennis Budimir on the guitar, and Jim Hewitt on the bass. All Los Angeles-based studio musicians who really made that album sound very unique. Kind of like before Steely Dan, it was a Steely Dan sounding album, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't before Steely Dan, but Steely Dan had just started sounding like that in '74. If you think about their first two albums,
Yeah.
their first two albums didn't sound like that. After
It didn't
that,
sound quite like Steely Dan that we became. Most people,
although a lot of people really prefer the early stuff. It's
yeah,
kind of like the Tom Johnston, Michael McDonald, Doobie Brothers thing. You know,
yeah,
you like the others because you're hipper. You
of
like this
course.
one because I'm cooler. I'm cooler and I own a motorcycle. After that, we heard a really great underrated songwriter that we're going to talk about, J.D. Souther or Souther, J.D. Souther. How do you pronounce this?
I've always said Souther, but I've heard
Souther it
Souther
is.
as well, mostly from you. But I've
Souther.
heard Souther.
Well, that's because I'm wrong, and I have no problem with being wrong. It happens all the time. But was that his last album? I want to say that was his last
I
album.
think that was his last album. I don't think
Um,
that was a long time coming in and of itself
yeah,
because it was
yeah,
like 15 years, I think, between
yeah.
albums, something like that.
That came out in May of 2015. It was an album called Tenderness. So that's not really a '70s thing, but he was really a '70s thing.
Yeah,
Guy,
yeah.
dude, guy, dude.
And we play something later in the set from his
Right, right. And I think it shows a lot of different influences here. This was a track that I thought could have been done by David Crosby with his band CPR. It's a track called
Mm-hmm.
Downtown Before the War. I just love uh, the lyrics on this. The way the lyrics
Yep.
move on that song is just incredible.
It's very cinematic in the lyrics on that
Right,
song.
right, right. And he was a songwriter who came up. Linda Ronstadt and the Eagles recorded his songs. He co-wrote "Best of My Love," "Heartache Tonight," "New Kid in Town," and several other Eagles songs. And he had his own hit with a song called "You're Only Lonely."
Mm-hmm.
I think that was '78. I want to say something like that.
I think that it was 78 or 79. I'm not positive. It
There
was
was
right around that
discussions
period.
discussions of making him part of the band, the Eagles, but I've heard that um, there were a couple guys who kind of objected to that in the Eagles. I can't verify that. I've read a lot of books about them, but the stories vary. I know that he was the story is that he was more into women than he was like really like building a career,
Oh, okay. All
which
right.
is, I mean, kind of did anyway. But anyway,
Well, yeah, but it's like if you write three or four of the biggest songs the Eagles ever had, he was probably making some bank on that.
he
So,
probably was back
yeah.
when people got paid for that kind of thing.
Yes,
That
exactly.
was J.D. Souther on the vocal, Billy Childs, great pianist who played with Freddie Hubbard and many others on the piano, David Pilch on the bass, who has played with K.D. Lang and Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Jay Belleros on the drums, who plays on all of T-Bone Burnett's productions, and then a trumpeter named Till Bronner, who I'm not familiar with, but
And
he's
produced
on
by Larry Klein.
Larry Klein, who was for a long time married to Joni Mitchell and then he was a bass player, also played with Freddie Hubbard
Yeah.
and many other people, and became a great record producer. After J.D. Souther, we played a real staple of that Laurel Canyon sound and scene. And
Hmm.
there's a story about how Souther and Glenn Fry lived downstairs from Jackson Browne. And Jackson Browne would get up every morning and sit down at the piano and work on the same song over and over and over, and just until he had it. There was no like, you gave it, Paul McCartney. I've heard stories about how McCartney would take his wife, Linda, to like a hair appointment, And while she was at the hair appointment, that was his time limit for finishing the song.
Huh,
Um,
that's
but
interesting.
Jackson Browne did not do that. Jackson Browne would write until it was done. The issue that I would have with that was after a while, you would drive yourself nuts and you would never
Hmm.
know if it was done. And then there would
Or
be too
anybody
much.
around you.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, right. But this was a song called The Pretender from the title track from the album The Pretender, his fourth LP that came out in November of 1976. And I think it really put him into a whole. He had done a couple albums before that, the Saturate Before Using and Late for the Sky. They were really big with the singer-songwriter crowd, but I think this
Hmm.
one really sort of put him into the star range
Yeah.
a little bit more. And a great
Hmm.
song, a really great song. Jackson Browne on the vocals, Craig Dorgy, who was with a group called The Section with Danny Korchmar, Russ Kunkel, and Leland Sklar. On the piano, Bob Glaub on the bass, Jeff Beccaro on the drums, Fred Tackett, who we know from Little Feat, but long before Little Feat, he played on this and many other albums on the guitars. And there they are again, David Crosby and Graham Nash on the background vocals. And I can't imagine this song without David Crosby and Graham Nash.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is stunning background vocal part.
Let's talk about the lyrics for a minute of that song,
Yeah,
because the lyrics on this song are phenomenal, and it's just and how ultimately at the end it talks about a compromise more or less being inevitable, but mourning what is lost in that process.
yeah.
I just think there's some beautiful lyrics in there talking about that. I think
A coming of
you
age thing, maybe.
yeah. Hmm.
Like idealism, the loss of idealism,
Yeah, exactly.
and the beginning
Exactly.
of the even if you take it on a cultural level, the moving from the hippie utopian dream into a
Yep.
more cynicism that was taking over in the middle 70s after
Yep.
Watergate had happened and Nixon resigned and
Hmm.
things were different than we thought and the movement after the Vietnam War the movement quote unquote kind of dissipated and
Yeah.
it sort of became something else but just what an amazing song and I'm glad we got to include some Jackson Browne.
Yeah.
After Jackson Browne, we heard some more J.D. Souther from his album from 1976 called Black Rose. We heard a track called Midnight Prowl. J.D. Souther on the guitar, the synthesizer, the congas, and the vocals. Dig this, man. This is quite a band. Donald Byrd on flugelhorn. Donald Byrd um, did many, many albums on Blue Note. He was with Art Blakey and the
Hmm.
Jazz Messengers. He was with Horace Silver. Um, just an amazing player, and you don't expect him to show up on a J.D. Souther album. But I think J.D. Souther was way into jazz early on, and so he's on there.
Yeah.
Lowell George from Little Feat on the slide guitar. Andrew Gold, we know Andrew Gold. Andrew Gold um, was
Did
Linda
the song
Ronstadt's.
Lonely Boy.
Yeah, yeah, Lonely Boy, and Thank You for Being a Friend. But before that, he was Linda Ronstadt's musical director, and
Hmm.
he did all the arranging that she hated so very much on You're No Good. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
He put it on when she wasn't around, and then she came back in and said, "What's this Beatles shit on my record?" But
Yeah.
they made her keep it, and it turned out to be her biggest hit. But anyway, Andrew Gold on the guitar, the electric piano, and the synthesizer, Russ Kunkel on the drums, and Kenny Edwards on the bass. J.D. Souther with Midnight Prowl. More of a soulful thing.
I would say that that album would be on a list of maybe 10 or 15 albums, I would say, that are kind of lost, completely lost to time classics.
Yeah,
Albums that, really people should know, but for whatever reason has become, just lost through the cracks of time.
right, right,
You
absolutely.
know,
And you can find it everywhere as a
yeah.
used LP or whatever. It's
Hmm.
really worth your time. J.D. Souther, Black Rose. And there's some really great performances from that album on the Midnight Special. I remember him being on the Midnight Special. That was the first time I'd ever heard of him. And the really great performances from this album. After that, we heard one that you picked that's not, I don't really associate Paul Butterfield with being a singer-songwriter, but this song is such a quintessential singer-songwriter song.
Yeah,
Um,
and it steps out of the realm because I know we were talking about '70s stuff, and this kind of steps out of the realm of that because this is,
yeah,
I think,
and it happened
'68.
before the Crosby, Stills and Nash album too.
Yeah.
68.
Hmm.
So from July of 1968, In My Own Dream, the title track from that album. Paul Butterfield on the vocals and the acoustic guitar, Elvin Bishop on guitar, Mark Knopfler on the keyboards, Bugsy Maw on the bass, Philip Wilson on percussion, Gene Dinwiddie on the mandolin, and a young man named David Sanborn on the soprano
Huh.
saxophone.
And
And
was never heard of again.
yeah, yeah. And the story is that Sanborn played that, and it's like a legendary solo on the soprano sax. And they said to
Hmm.
him, "Well, why didn't you play soprano sax after that?" And he said, "Well, I was in New York and I was really high, and I got in a cab and left the soprano sax in a cab, and never saw it again."
That it
Drugs are
was in the
bad,
cab
Dave.
with Jimi Hendrix
Yep, yep,
tapes.
yep. Drugs are bad, Dave. Yeah, because Hendrix left the entire first side of Axis Bold as Love
Yeah, in a
in a
cab.
cab. Yeah. Jeez. Right before it was supposed to be mixed to go
Yeah,
out to, because he was playing it for people at parties. Don't
yeah.
give Jimmy the tape. Anyway, after Butterfield, we heard Cat Stevens, Stephen Dimitri Giorgio. There you go. That's his real name.
Yeah.
And in the 1960s, he was like a teen idol type of like Monkees kind of guy. He was still
Hmm.
writing his own material. He had a big hit with a song called Matthew and Son, and another one called The First Cut is the Deepest that was later covered by Rod
Rod
Stewart and
Stewart.
Sheryl Crow. Yeah. But this was from 74. His eighth LP, Buddha and the Chocolate Box, came out in March of 74. And we played my favorite Cat Stevens song of all time, Sun C79. Just an amazing song. And
Hmm.
that was Cat Stevens on the acoustic guitar, the synthesizers, and the vocals. Alan Davies on the acoustic guitar, Bruce Lynch on the bass, Jerry Conway on the drums, and Jean Roussel on the keyboards. Jean Roussel later played the keyboards on Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic by the Police. So there you
Ah,
go. Yeah.
okay.
And those guys are on all of those Cat Stevens records. And he was a singer-songwriter. I believe that he spent a lot of time in that Laurel Canyon. For a while, I believe he was dating Carly Simon, but because she wrote Anticipation about him. Um, and but I think he was sort of part of that scene, even though he was from England.
Right.
So
Well,
anyway,
there were several people that were from England that were hanging out over there at the time.
John Mayall had an
Hmm.
album called Laurel Canyon, I believe.
Yeah.
But after that, we heard Harry Nilsson from his album called Aerial Ballet from 1968, and that was his song One. Some interesting stuff about One, okay? One was written while listening to a busy signal. You remember when,
Yeah,
when you
yeah, yeah.
call and somebody then and they didn't answer you, they were, when they were talking to someone else or they just had their phone off the hook, you would get and so he just
Hmm.
one is the loneliest now. We just started singing along
Yeah.
with the busy signal. Now
Yeah.
that's creative, dude. That's
Hmm.
creative. And that was let's see, I've got something. That was recorded by Three Dog Night, and they had a big hit with Chuck
Yeah.
Negron singing that song. This is a
Hmm.
completely different version of that, but he had a lot of really great stuff. It's interesting that he was such a great songwriter and such a great singer too, but such a great songwriter. But the song that everybody knew him for wasn't his song. It was
Yeah.
Everybody's
That's
Talking,
insane.
written by
Yeah.
Fred Neil. And
Yep.
so that to me that's interesting that he was known, and that's an incredible vocal on that song. Wow, what a great vocal.
Hmm.
And there were so many other songs that he wrote that were incredible. I mean, and then his other hit, Without You, once again, not a Harry Nilsson song that was originally
But
recorded by Badfinger.
the song that made him popular in movies, especially Scorsese movies, was
Jump
"Jump
into
into
the
the
Fire.
Fire,"
Yeah.
which he did right.
And then there's, of course, Put the Lime in the Coconut, which I'm not sure that was a shining moment. It's going to go
But it
out
was a
on a limb.
money maker.
I know people who break out in a rash when they hear that song, man. God damn. You know,
I only really do that till we built this city. Uh,
written by Bernie Taupin, man.
yeah, yeah, that's a
Not Bernie
rough one.
Taupin's finest moment.
No, not at all, not at
Yeah.
all. But I will say, Harry Nielsen again falls into the category of one of my all-time favorites, and I always, I really hurts me to listen to like his later albums after he was drunkenly hanging out with John Lennon
Yeah,
there for a while, blew out his voice and it never came back. I mean, it was
right.
always like, he was a much harsher voice after that period. I think it was after the Pussycats period. I think that
Right,
was
right, right,
the,
right, right. Yeah. Because his
anything that was
vocal,
recorded
man,
after that.
his vocals on those albums, I guess those sessions were completely out of control for like
Yeah,
Nilsson Schmilsson and then Son of Schmilsson. And of course, he wrote You're Breaking My Heart.
you're tearing me apart. So,
Fuck you.
yeah,
I didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? I
no.
didn't I remember when that came on, I bought that album and that song came on and I went, what did he say? Let me put that back.
That was kind of not heard of at that time.
No.
Rap hadn't come along
But
yet.
it's
So,
hilarious, man. It's absolutely,
yeah.
and I guess that, he was a big, big drinker and they partied real hard. But he was also like he's doing all these background vocals on like Ringo songs. I guess they were real tight.
Mhm.
And you
He
know,
just had an amazing voice, just a
yeah,
pristine voice. And
absolutely.
then, he blew it all on partying with John
Well, and
and it just ripped his voice up.
alcohol also a hell of a drug, buddy.
Yes, yes,
Legal, completely legal.
yes.
And yet. But that was
And yet,
Harry Nilsson with a song he wrote listening to a busy signal one. After that, we heard Paul Simon with one of his greatest songs, and that's saying something. Um,
yeah.
from his album called There Goes Ryman Simon from May of 1973, we heard American Tune, which is
Hmm.
based on a hymn, I guess. I didn't know that, but it's based on a hymn. He sort of
Okay.
copied from a hymn, which he was kind of famous for, like copying stuff and sort of applying his own vibe to it. That was kind of the
Hmm.
Graceland album that he got sued
Yes,
over, but
exactly.
yeah.
And
But
Rhythm of the Saints.
Rhythm of Saints too. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was Paul Simon on vocals and acoustic guitar, Bob James on the keyboards, who had a and still does have an illustrious jazz career and wrote the theme to the TV show Taxi. Remember that?
Hmm. Yep.
Bob Cranshaw on the bass, Grady Tate on the drums, and once again, there's Del Newman doing the string arrangements. So it's
There
Del
he is
Newman
again.
night. I don't know anything about Del Newman except that his name
Wasn't
is
he with the Wrecking Crew? No, I'm just messing with
no,
you,
yes,
man.
it's Del Newman. But I think those were all New York session guys. I know Bob Cranshaw
Hmm.
played with Sonny Rollins for years and was the bass player on Saturday Night Live in the first couple of years. That was all, because you see him on the old episodes sometimes if you watch those. And Grady Tate was a great drummer and a great singer as well. So
Hmm.
Paul Simon with American Tune. Um, I just think that's an amazing, amazing
Oh,
song.
it's
And it
brilliant song.
and it came around when there was a lot of upheaval in this country, which we cannot relate to at all anymore because
I have
everything
no
is
idea
so
what you're talking
smooth.
about.
We finished off that set with Bob Dylan because we had to play some Bob Dylan if we're going to play some singer-songwriter stuff. So I went
Yep.
with one of his most famous pieces that a lot of people haven't heard his version of this song. They've heard that other guy that did this song, or any of the 3 million covers. But
Yes.
this is all along the Watchtower from his album called John Wesley Harding that came out December 27th, 2 days after Christmas, 1967, which I
There
believe is the
seems to be a theme.
same day as Songs of Leonard Cohen, dude. Same day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Another
anyway,
great day for music, but a
yeah.
weird day to release it.
So after doing um, Highway 61 and Blonde on Blonde, which were more electric albums. This was more
Hmm.
of a return to an acoustic sound for him.
Hmm.
Bob Dylan on the acoustic guitar and the vocals and the harmonica, Charlie McCoy on the bass, and Kenny Buttrey on the drums. Kenny Buttrey was on the first song that we played by Neil Young. Kenny Buttrey was on the last song that we played by Bob Dylan. So there you
There we
go.
go.
From 1967, Bob Dylan. This is the Burnt Toast Show, brought to you by Premier Chiropractic. You
Chiropractic.
missed it again. You
Yeah,
fucking
you
missed it
gotta give
again.
me a better setup than that. Okay,
Brought
well,
to
let's do it again.
you,
One more.
brought to you by Premier
Premier chiropractic.
Chiropractic.
You're drawing it out too
It's
much
like trying to get your dog to say "I love you."
there. Oh,
That dog is barking. That is not my dog.
All right. Premier Chiropractic, 7113 West Jefferson. Dr. John McDonald, an affordable walk-in clinic. Dr. John McDonald, if you haven't figured out already, is one of my favorite people. He has saved me. We're working on, I don't know if we'll have a big little advertisement for him, but we've got some elaborate advertising for him because we felt like it, because he's great and he's nice enough to sponsor the show and he's awesome and huge baseball fan. Yeah.
That's a big plus right there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And he's great at his job. Um, and you should check him out. Premier Chiropractic, 7113 West Jefferson. We're going to move on to the third set. We've got 5 songs in the third set. I wanted to make sure we included some new stuff, so we started off with something that's not new, of course. It's something that I played way too much on the radio, I'm sure, when we were on the radio. And Chris Robinson Brotherhood from their very last album from 2019 called Servants of the Sun. We're going to play the last song on the album, A Shining Epitaph, a very involved tune. Chris Robinson on the vocals, Adam McDougall on the keyboards, Neil Casal, who passed away right after this album was released, and Jeff Hill on the bass, and Tony Leone on the drums. Chris Robinson Brotherhood, Shining Epitaph. After that, we'll hear something new from Dickie Betts' son, Dwayne Betts. He has a new album out coming out in June called Isle of Hope, and we're going to play a song called Down to Houston. I don't like to play music videos, but that's all we have to choose from on this one, and it's a great song, and he does sound like
Hmm.
his dad, which is pretty cool. Then
Yeah.
we move along to another former member of the Allman Brothers Band, Derek Trucks, and his wife, Tedeschi, Susan Tedeschi. So it's the
Hmm.
Tedeschi Trucks. Yes, her name is Tedeschi. Tedeschi Susan.
Nicely handled.
That's right. Sure. Let me have an ice cream cone.
She's Tedeschi.
That's right. So it's the Tedeschi Trucks Band. They have a new album out that I can't figure out at all called Future Soul. Got no idea what you're doing here, but I really like this song. It was written by their keyboard player, Gabe Dixon, and it's called Devil Be Gone, which I believe women have said to me before.
Well, they only, honestly, Todd, they only say that after they get to know you.
That's right, after they get to
Devil
know
be
me.
gone.
Yeah, I make a good first impression. It's just if you hang out with me for any length of time, devil be gone. And they don't mean it in the most nicest possible way either. After the Tedeschi Trucks Band, we're going to hear the Parlor Greens from their new album called Emeralds. We're going to hear the title track. Jimmy James on the guitar, Adam Scone on the organ, and Tim Carmen on the drums on Coal Mine Records, based out of a record store in Ohio that I plan to try to find one day when I'm feeling
Hmm.
saucy. But and we're going to close out with another organ group. This one is called The Breaks. They've got an album coming out in May called The Breaks, and and this is Stanton Moore on the drums, Robert Walter on the keyboards, on the organ, and Eddie Roberts on the guitar. Stanton Moore from Galactic. He's also touring right now with Corrosion of Conformity. Robert Walter on
Oh
the
wow.
keyboards. We know him from the Grey Boy All Stars and Mofro. He's also Roger Waters' touring keyboard player. And Eddie Roberts on the guitar from the New Master Sounds. He's also the president of Color Red Records, based out of Denver. And this album is on Color Red Records, based out of.
So he's not only the president, he's also a player.
That's right. Yes. I'm not just the president. I'm also a member of the Hair Club for Men. I believe, Dave, that's what we should call ourselves, is the Hair Club for
Yes,
Men.
that's the side project. I'll call it the Hair Club for Men.
Yeah.
You didn't mention the name of the song.
Oh, but there is one. There is one. Hang on. What's it
It's called
called? Damn it.
Snowballers.
Snowballers, which I'm not going to go after that at all. I'm not going to venture a
Really?
guess.
Really?
No. I know that the term baller means good. If you say, dude, you're a
It,
baller.
yeah, if you said it about 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I don't
we're
remember
old,
saying
Todd.
it 20 years ago, and I'm really not up on this current slang. You dig?
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, Daddy-O. But yeah. But anyway, it's been my
Repeat.
it's been another well, it's been a pleasure doing this with you again, and I hope that we can do
Yeah.
this again very soon. I'm good next week if you are. Hello? Hello? Is this on?
I'm sorry. Is this thing on? I don't know. We'll have to see. I might be I have some time. I might not. I've got next 2 weeks. I've got some stuff going on, but we'll see what I can do.
And I'm trying to get back on the interview thing. I've got a bunch of people that have agreed to the interview, but we can't seem to get a time hooked up. But we will. I've got some really good people, and I enjoy doing those interviews because there's questions that only I would be dumb enough to ask. Remember the Barbara Walters, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
man.
most of them would go, "What?"
Oh, yeah, that's right. Is this thing on?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, and one more time. Premier Chiropractic. Um
Premier chiropractor. Oh, I said it late again.
that's right. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. You are you. But
Yeah.
so anyway, I'm trying to get back to the original page, which is this is Crush Robinson Brotherhood, Dwayne Betts, the Tedeschi Trucks Band, the Parlor Greens, and the Breaks. And the breaks are what we're hitting right now because I'm sure you've had enough of us. But
But
anyway,
but
thank you so
why?
much, David.
Hey, no
And
problem. Always a pleasure.
once again, this is episode 11 because this
This
one
one goes
goes
to
up
11. Look out for the
11.
demon behind you.
Okay. All right. Now. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Thank you, David. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Burnt toast!